Hello, my YouTube family. Well, we are actually going to meet in the kitchen today. I will catch you up on what I've been doing the last couple days. We did 5 pints of little red beans, 5 pints of pinto beans. I did 5 pints of kidney beans, and now the pintos and the little red beans, I did those yesterday, and one of them did not seal, so it is actually no fret, because I'm actually going to turn that into supper tonight, hence the reason for this video. We are actually going to do food from Mexico. I love Mexican food, and so that's what we're going to do on the homestead. Mainly, as much as possible, homemade, no less. And I'm going to take you on that kitchen journey with me. I also just got through doing some old-fashioned oatmeals, cranberry oatmeal cookies, and I am letting them cool off so I can put them up. I have done some low-carb snickerdoodles. I have a video that will be coming up on how to make those for those who are doing low-carb and like to have treats like we do. So I've got a lot of content, y'all. It is becoming fall. I have a lot of pumpkin type recipes that I will be coming up with. I would love to try myself, including a pumpkin cinnamon roll and a few low-carb pumpkin foods as well. And then we did the pretzels and all that. So I'm enjoying this fall, y'all. So let's go in the kitchen. And first I will tell you what we were doing. With that jar that did not seal of my pinto beans, we're going to make homemade refried beans. I am going to be making some homemade guacamole, some homemade corn tortillas, and I currently am using my deer meat that was in our freezer because we're doing some clean out from last year's stuff so that we can get ready to restock for the new season. This is what we do when we get toward the end of summer, just before fall. I still continue to do my pantry, and then we start working on the freezer. So I had 2 packages, small packages of deer tenderloin, and I sat and thought for a minute. When I looked at these beans, I thought, what can I do with this? So I'm actually turning this deer meat into carne asadas. So it's currently in my crock pot tenderizing, because we are going to have an authentic as possible street tacos with carne asada, deer meat, homemade guacamole, homemade refried beans. Now, however, my husband, will be having carb smart, low carb tortillas. So he may try a corn just to see what will happen, but we'll see. But right now we're going authentic, y'all, as possible. So let's go in the kitchen and have some fun. We're going to Mexico. Okay, my family, so what we're going to need is a 1.5 cups of corn masa. Now, I'm using the yellow. There is 2 different kinds. There is a white masa, there is a yellow masa, and I did check. This one is yellow. It is gluten-free. It is not carb-free. I'll just tell you that much. These have carbs, so eat sparingly. That's exactly what I'm going to do with these. But I wanted actually to try out the homemade corn tortillas versus the store-bought, because frankly, I just don't like all the extra ingredients that don't need to be in tortillas or anything these days. So we're going to try our hand at the homemade version. So we're going to start out with a 1.5 cups of corn masa. And it's instant corn masa. Just the same stuff you would use for tortillas, actually. So, or tamales, I mean. I have done the floured tortillas many a times, but now the lady that, I don't know quite her name, but I had learned she does not pack this masa. So it's just like you do when we bake flour. You just come in here and do the topping of it like so. We need a 1.5 cups of this. I'm just spooning my masa into my cup and then coming back and scraping off the top. We just don't want to pack it. And this supposedly makes 8 to 9 tortillas. which is plenty enough, and I could freeze them later if I wanted to. So now we'll put this up in a container for later. And I need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You're going to be amazed to see. I thought there was so much more to this. There really isn't. I need a 1/4 teaspoon, and I am using Himalayan sea salt. And now I need 1.5 cups of warm water, like baby bottle warm water. I'm actually going to use just my tap water, because it does get about 110 degrees, the kind that I would use to for my yeast. Actually, that's about the same amount of warm water you want to use for your masa. And we're going to do this a little at a time. We're not going to do it all at once while we mix it up. I'm going to go ahead and mix in my salt. Now this is something you do want to do with your hands, because you want to feel the texture to this. So I'm going to get my 1.5 cups of water ready, and when I come back and get that, we will get this mixed. Alright y'all, so we have our water. Now it is suggested to start out slowly with it. Don't just dump the whole thing in there. And the reason for that is we can always add more if needed, but if we add too much, well, we can't really fix that. So we're just going to go ahead and mix this masa. We want it into a nice dough that sticks together, doesn't stick to you, and it sticks to the bowl. We don't want it crumbly like it is now, so I'm going to have to add some more water, because this is just not the texture needed. And we're just going to continually keep doing this until our masa comes together like a nice dough where we can knead it. And we're still not being able to do that, so it still comes apart, and we've got to get all of this masa incorporated with the liquid. We're just going to keep doing this until we get everything that we need. So once I get this set up to what we need it for, I will come back and I will show you how this worked out. Okay y'all, so I did not use all of my water. Again, it depends on your atmosphere, humidity levels, and all of that stuff. So I might have used about 1/4 or about 3/4 to a cup of water in this. So as you can see, it's not sticking to my hands. It did come away from the bowl, and we are ready to wrap this up and let it absorb even more. So what I'm going to do is wrap this into a nice ball. And then I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap and set it aside for 30 minutes and let this absorb what it needs to do. And then after 30-minute resting, we will come back and start making our corn tortillas. So I'm just now going to take this in my saran wrap, push it down just a little bit and cover this up. Just like so. There we go. And I'm just now going to set this inside of a clean bowl, and at that point, after 30 minutes, we will be back and I will show you how to finish these off before we go on to our next ingredients. Okay y'all, so while our tortilla mix is resting for 30 minutes, I decided to go ahead and heat and cook up my beans before we technically fry them up. So I've had these sitting in the refrigerator, and I'm just going to add this to my pan with the juice and all. I'm going to rinse out my jar just a little bit and add this to it, because we're going to be using this afterwards for the flavoring. Now I'm going to give you some tips about these beans. Even though they're home canned, you can do this with any home canned, you can do this with any store-bought. I've done it with both. I actually have to, because personally we'll get on the real side of beans. Some people, it doesn't really affect them. I have rinsed my beans, I have soaked my beans. I did the quick soaking my beans before canning, cleaning them, putting in fresh water, and still it gets that point where there's still that slight issue of bloating, and they're gassy. So what I tend to do is I help eliminate that even more. Now some can put Beano in their beans, or others can do what I am fixing to do, is once I heat my beans up, I'm going to add, because this is 1 jar, I'm going to add anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda in mine, so I can remove all the what is left after cleaning them, processing them like I did. Still yet there's still some residue, so I'm going to use baking soda. Now I am going to be adding a little bit more flavor to my beans, so I'm adding a tomato based bouillon in here just to give it that extra flavor. Then I am going to be using some fresh garlic and some fresh onions, which that will come after the process here. I'm going to be adding some cumin to this for flavoring as well in these beans. I don't particularly have a recipe. I'm just going based by the size. I've done this for so long, it's hard to tell in a recipe, but I'm going to do my best. So with 1 jar of beans, I am going to add approximately about 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. You can always come back and give more, up to a full teaspoon, but I'm going to go with 1/2 right now. So I'm going to add my 1/2. And like I said, I'm going to be adding my beans, onions, and all that to this, because I am actually going to mash these up as well. Right now, I'm just getting the flavor in my beans, and then I am going to get them unbloated. So we are going to stick this on the stove. After we get this good mixed up, we're going to stick this on the stove, get these heated through, and I will come back when it comes time to adding the baking soda and show you what it does. So we will be right back. Okay, y'all, so I got these beans up to a boil. I do this to all my beans. I will get them up to a boil and boil them for about 10 minutes. Now, as I was speaking, now I'm going to use here about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm just going to sprinkle this in here slowly. This is 1/2 teaspoon. And then I'm going to mix this in my beans. This also will let you know how well you got the gases out of here, even after canning process. This is what it always, you see all this foam in here? It always shows me, even after I rinsed them, or after I soaked them, rinsed them, then I recooked them. So what it was boil them for 2 minutes, let them sit an hour. I rinsed them off. Then I brought it back up to a boil, and I rinsed them off again and filled my jars with clean water. And still, y'all, I still have the bloatingness inside my beans. So this is the reason why I went and dissolved that as well, leaving more of a better experience for our beans and to enjoy them than to have that bloatingness. So I'm hoping this little tip helped you all too. This is what I started doing to all of my beans. Believe this or not, this happens even in the ones that you buy from the store, y'all. So, as a matter of fact, worse than the home canned ones, I've noticed. So I'm going to go ahead and let these finish cooking out and let this baking soda work. And then after this, we're going to go ahead and start fixing up our refried beans. So we will be back. Okay, y'all, so what I am going to use, a lot of people will use a variety of different fats. All of them which are good, but each one also leaves a different flavor. So I actually have some bacon fat. I'm not going to use a whole lot of this bacon fat, but it's just for extra flavor. I'm not adding bacon to my beans either. So I am just going to, right now, heat my pan. I'm using my cast iron pan for my beans. And I'm going to add just a little bit of my bacon just for flavor. I'm not going to add a whole lot of fat to this. I am trying to keep on the more healthier side as much as possible and not overdo things anymore. And I mean, anybody, you're welcome to do anything that you want to do. I will never tell anybody how to do it. Things, there, you know, do you, and we'll all be happy. So once I get this knocked down, I'm going to add in some garlic, fresh garlic, and some fresh onions, and bring out that flavor before I add my beans. Now remember, we did season our beans beforehand, so, and if I have to, I will be adding some garlic to this, or I'm using fresh garlic, but I'll be adding my salt because I did not add my salt and all that yet either. So I'm going to go ahead and strain these beans and get them ready to go into this pot, but I'm saving the liquid. So I'll be right back as soon as I strain these. Okay, y'all, so I strained our beans. I'm sauteing our onions. Now I will probably be using an emulsion blender with this one. I know a lot of people use a tomato or a potato masher. Personally, I don't have one unless I use a fork. So I'm just probably going to use my emulsion blender. I will have it still thick because I'm going to watch how much liquid I add to this. And now that I've released the aroma of the onions and the garlic, and remember, I'm just making a small batch of beans, so I'm now going to toss in my pintos. Oh y'all, this smells absolutely amazing. And this is why I saved the sauce as well, because we will be adding this. Now I could have went with a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda on this. It did not leave a bad taste, just to let you know, but I could have went with a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this. Now I'm going to go ahead and ladle in some of my broth a little at a time, because I don't want to overpower this. I want it a nice thick base, but I'm also adding the flavoring. I'm going to go through here and mash this up a little bit with my fork before I emulsify it. I may even find I don't need the emulsion blender, so we're going to go ahead and get this nice and soft. Cook this down and keep doing this till everything is nice and tender to blend together. Once that happens, we will be right back and I will show you what the final product is and let you know what I think of these versus the store-bought kind. So we will be right back. Okay y'all, so here's the final, and I'm gonna tell you, this was absolutely amazing. They say as it cools down it thickens up, and this is absolutely true. This is thickening up. Like I said, we did just make a small batch, so I am content with this. I think I used maybe a 1/4 cup of liquid inside of this batch, and it was absolutely perfect. I have some chunk to this, not a whole lot. I did mash majority of it up with a fork. I did not use my emulsion blender, although I could have. So that's another thing you can choose to do. If you want super fine, you can do so. But as far as flavor versus the store-bought, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Homemade, way to go, y'all. So now it's time to go ahead and start making up our tortillas. So I'm going to get my comal, which is underneath this pan, ready and heat it up. Once I get that heated, we're going to go ahead and start forming our tortillas. Now I'm going to set this aside, and then we're going to use our comal and heat this up and get this ready to make our tortillas. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, before we press our tortillas, we need to make at least 8 to 9 golf ball size balls, and then we are going to cover these up to keep them moist. So we're going to take our dough and we're going to form it into a ball. And we're going to go ahead and lay it about the size of a golf ball, just like so. And then we are actually going to cover this up with our plastic wrap. I'm gonna go ahead and keep pulling these apart until we get the amount that we absolutely need for this. We'll see how much we can get. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing this until I can get our little balls made up, and then we will go to pressing them, and we will be right back. Okay, y'all, so I am going to be cheating. Basically, instead of rolling this, I am actually going to be using a tortilla press. Now, the plastic that I'm using, you can use parchment paper. There was a really cool idea, so I'm going to try it out, and it's washable actually. So I took a freezer bag, plastic freezer bag, and I made my rounds to go up over my press. And so let me show you how we're going to do this. So I'm going to take one of my made up, we got 9 tortilla balls. So we're going to take it, put it right smack dab in the middle of my press. I am going to put my other piece of plastic on top. We're going to fold this over, bring it around, and press it. Now we want it this kind of thin, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this around because some of this still at this end is still kind of thick. So we're going to take it, press it, and that's it. Now I'm going to take that top layer off, come around and take that second one. If we can get it to cooperate with us. There we go. Take that second. That one got a little bit too thin at that end, so I kind of broke that a little bit. So I'm actually going to redo this one, y'all. We will be right back. Alright, now we did it. I'm still learning how to use this press, so I was pressing a little bit too tight or too hard. So now we're going to pull this down, and now we're going to come over here to the cast iron skillet. Hang on. Okay, so we start to see these bubbles on the top. We want to count for about 30 seconds. Then we're going to come by and flip this over, and again 30 seconds. We're at 20, 21, 22, 23. Sorry about that, y'all. And then now we're going to go ahead and flip it again. We want to make sure these are cooked. Now sometimes they will puff up, sometimes they don't. It doesn't, I mean, it's still good if it doesn't. And see, mine are starting to actually puff up a little bit here. So they do work. Yeah, these are actually doing this. So we don't want to make them super crispy unless you want to make tostadas. So you just want to keep doing this a few minutes at a time, and then flip them over. And then we're going to keep them, because I don't have a bowl to put these in, I'm actually going to keep them warm between a tea towel, in between the tea towels. So, and there is my first homemade corn tortilla. I'm going to go ahead and do this with the rest of the 8 that are left over. And now I'm just going to wrap them up here. It is clean, but it's something I've used over and over and over, y'all. These tea towels will go a long way. So now I just put it on my towel, cover it up just like so, and keep my tortillas nice and warm. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these, and then we have guacamole to make. Alright, y'all, so now we're going to go ahead and do our guacamole. Now, I am going to show you how I do this without having to make a whole lot of mess. Is I will take and cut my avocados in half. I will remove the pit, and then I will score in here my slices, because this recipe is requiring about 2. I'm actually going to use 3 because they are small. So I'm just cutting these up to my little squares. And then I'm going to scoop it out just like that, and it makes it super easy. You don't have to fuss and muss with them, and you're not getting your hands and everything all dirty. So we're just going to go ahead and finish the rest of these, and then we'll move on to the rest of our ingredients. I have not made homemade guacamole in an awful long time. Now this is a kind of a chunky version. It's not the kind you get from the store that's mushy per se. So I kind of like the chunky stuff. Again, I'm just cutting my avocados just gently. You don't want to cut through the skin. You just grazing it and then cutting it, and see, you're getting your chunks already done for you. So I love this idea. It's super quick and easy. Then I just take and pop my seed, twist it just a little, and then it comes right out of the avocado. We got one more after this, and then we will go ahead and finish some more of these ingredients. Now our next one we're going to use is a small purple onion. I'm not going to add a whole lot of it. No, let me put that over here. And the jalapeno that I am actually going to use is I'm going to use my home canned jalapenos. So these are actually been pickled, and I decided to just go ahead and do that because the price of things are getting kind of crazy, and if I've already got it in my pantry, I might as well use it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. These are not the best looking avocados in the world, but I'm going to use them not to waste them. They still are edible, and so this would make a great idea to use it for guacamole. Alright, I'm going to clean this up, and then we're going to go ahead and chop up. We're having Roman tomatoes, some purple onions, and some fresh garlic, and we will be right back. Okay, y'all. We're going to go ahead and take and mash some of this. I'm not going to do all of it because, like I said, I want this kind of chunky, but not super chunky. We're just going to come through here and mash just maybe half of this mix. And I'm not really completely mashing them either. I'm just kind of breaking them down a little bit. That's good enough. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to add 1 clove of garlic. I have 1 Roma tomato that's been diced. The garlic has been minced, and so has the it's about a couple tablespoons of purple onions that have been minced. So I'm just going to add all of this to my guacamole. And I'm also going to be adding, now this is an ingredient, you add what you will, of cilantro. Some people don't like a whole lot of it, some people do. I will give you the recipe to this in the description box, as I always do. I need about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, again, I am going to be adding jalapenos. About that much. And what I'm going to be doing is, because I have a hard time finding decent looking jalapenos right now, I'm going to be using the ones that I pickled and canned. So this is going to be perfect. Now, it does say to use a half of a medium jalapeno pepper minced. So we're just going to use a couple pieces of this, because I will tell you the experience that I know of with guacamole or with jalapenos that have been canned. They can be enhanced in flavor. So they can actually be a little bit spicier than normal. So I'm actually going to take and pull out some of these peppers. As soon as I find mine, there we go, my tongs. I'm going to pull out a couple of these peppers, and I'm going to dice them up right quick. I'm actually going to mince these. I'm not adding a whole lot because It also calls for you to add pepper flakes, red pepper flakes. I'm actually going to omit the red pepper flakes because of these jalapenos. I think 4 of these rings are going to be absolutely enough in this guacamole, because this one did have half and half seed, half seedless. So, and that's it, y'all. Now I'm going to take the rest of these. We'll put this up for later because I'm sure hubby's going to want this in his supper tonight, so I'll have to find a ring. Now all I'm going to do is mix this up really good. And then the very last ingredient we're going to use is an entire lime, and we're going to add the lime juice to our guacamole. So I'm going to go get my press and I'll be right back. Okay, so I rolled my lime to release the juices, and now I'm just going to, now this is a pretty good size lime, so we're going to test it first before we use the other one. Put this aside for right now. Mix this up right good. We will test out our guacamole before we add our other one. This looks amazing, y'all. I'm loving the fact that we're having authentic, like, street food tonight. Hubby has no idea, and this is going to be absolutely amazing. And I thought I'd share it with y'all because who don't love Mexican food? I mean, and when you make it homemade like this with everything, you cannot go wrong with flavor balance. Let's try this. Nope, that has the right amount of lime. So if you have a big one, you tend to use a small lime. That's the right amount of lime flavor in that. That's amazing. So I'm going to save this one to go on our tacos tonight. So I'm going to recap of everything that we did and get this all put up in dishes and waiting for hubby to come home. So we'll be right back. Okay, y'all, so our recap. We have our homemade, oh my gosh, y'all. Look how bendable. See? This is amazing. We have our homemade corn tortillas. We have our homemade guacamole, our homemade refried beans. These taste amazing. And in here, for our meat source, we are using carne asada seasonings with deer meat. That is actually deer tenderloin. And this is going to be our supper tonight. Everything homemade from scratch, street food tacos. We'll be right back. I hope you all enjoyed being in the kitchen with me tonight and having our authentic Mexican meal, everything homemade from scratch. One of the reasons I did this is because I wanted to show you another version of what you can do with deer meat, since deer season is about to start. And a lot of homesteaders, actually, we like to go hunting. So, and we kind of depend on that meat sometimes. So it was a way of using another form of deer meat. Many people don't know what to do because there's a lot of questions. Well, I have this, but what do I do with it? Tacos seemed like an ultimate basic yes day to me. And it's Tuesday, y'all. So Taco Tuesday, who knew? So I decided to go ahead and do that. Again, hubby is going to be using low-carb tortillas. I decided to save on what he had for him, so I went with the corn, do more of a fiber base, but I will be very cautious of how many I eat. But then I added our homemade beans and our homemade guacamole, and you just can't go wrong with homemade, y'all. This food is absolutely amazing. I will be putting recipes for you like I always do, because I want to be able to share these meals with you, because it'll be like we sat together. Now, I will be doing some homesteading tailgating meals coming up as well, because we found my husband and I have rarely ever watched a game, and honestly it can get kind of boring with just 2 people. So our children, which I will not name the players that they watch, I mean, it's just basically, for me and Hubs, we don't really get into sports, but to be able to have the idea of doing a family tailgating, watch a game type of thing, that to me was kind of cool. So I will be having a homestead video on how to do a tailgate in low carb and healthy Mediterranean ways. And then again with the all-American ways. So look forward to that coming up, and Until next time, I love you all dearly. Much love to you from Parton's Heritage Homestead.